Well, hey there team, and welcome back to the channel, and welcome to my review of Ready or Not. Oh my goodness, this game has consumed my time. I am loving it, and I'm not going to stop playing it either, just because I'm reviewing it. More hours will be going into it. So yes, to front load it, is the game worth your money? Is it worth your time? Yes, absolutely, and then some. For those that aren't across it, I am a reluctant reviewer, as in I'm less interested in writing flowery essays and worrying more about my work product as a video think piece. And I'm just more an idiot with a microphone talking to a fellow idiot gamer, you, and just saying, hey, this game's cool, this is what I think. No dot points, no scripts, it's all off the cuff. The only objective standard that we have around here is for every $5 that the game asks me for, I ask it for an hour of solid gameplay. It's an arbitrary bar and it's fairly low to pass, but at least that makes it so that I can give you a fair idea of a game and I can keep it kind of even between price points. On that, Ready or Not is going for $73.50 Australian, we'll call it 75, and from that we'll call that 15 hours, which I've put in. I would have put more in when I played it originally and it came out in early access. And I didn't necessarily bounce off it, but I wasn't super into it. It was still fairly early. I'm not a tactical shooter kind of person, but seeing it in the current final product, the 1.0 version, it's really cool to see what's there. This game, absolutely, first and foremost, you should aspire to play it multiplayer. If you can get 5 like-minded dudes to create a SWAT team stack, you're going to get the most fun out of it. However, the single player mode, commander mode, that's been added is not without its merits. In fact, I've played a lot of it on my own and I've just really enjoyed it, where you control 4 bots with a sort of rudimentary action wheel, sort of middle mouse click command thing. It's not too complex, but it's complex enough. And then you've got sort of like a contextual Z button so you can bomb up on doors and all that, sort of a quick fire command thing. It works really well. However, the game, the nature of the game being that it's a SWAT simulator, is that it's going to squeeze you as hard as possible. It's not some open arena shooter or anything like that. It is very much about sweeping through these very tightly packed spaces. High lethality is an important part of it. I know people are complaining that perhaps the AI is overtuned at the moment. If I was the developers, I'd be happy to hear that, to be honest. In a game like this, the worst thing you could ever hear is that it was too easy. So yes, the AI is really hard, but what I feel is happening, not to carry water for the devs, but as someone who's played a chunk of it multiplayer and single player, this game is a multiplayer game. A squad of dudes sweeping and clearing a room can do so much more. There's so much fidelity in the human component when compared to an AI with a couple of commands available. So the enemy AI is very, very lethal, and as the levels go on, it will potentially get frustrating because there's only so much you can do commanding your little dudes to breach through a room. One that comes to mind is this like airport baggage handler, big open area, and all the AI is set up in essentially like sniper perches. They're going to see you before you see them. And your ability to control your dudes, there's not really a lot of thresholds and all that. It does start to crumble under its own weight. But again, I think you need to look at it through the correct lens. This is best played multiplayer. It's clearly designed all these cool set piece scenarios. Each one is better than the last one. They're beautiful to look at. The graphics and just the setup, it feels great to play, but you can just feel that it is made for multiplayer. So just be careful reading some of the reviews, some of the negative takes out there I would warn against, because I feel like they might be people that are just playing it single player and they're upset that it's not balanced around single player. The single player mode is great, it's a lot of fun, but it's only going to get you so far. So as far as I would recommend getting this, I'm also aware that it's very, very expensive and you really want 5 players to make it work. However, I play with smaller groups. I find with 2, not so much. 3 actually works quite well, to be honest. So 3 and up, if you can convince 3 of your group and up, then you're probably going to be laughing. Also worth noting is that I'm not someone who's very much into tactical shooters. I don't really sweat guns and that sort of thing, which is hilarious, but also actually fairly common when you're dealing with ex-military people. At the end of the day, a gun's a hammer. You just need to know how to use it and use it to hit nails. I'm not really an RP military sweaty asthmatic that lives and breathes for which type of fucking canted sight you're putting on your AR. Like, I don't care. It's a toy. It's a game. It's bad enough that we're adults playing games, boys. But having said that, if you find yourself someone that does look at things like Tarkov and all that, and you kind of turned off of it, you might find that you really enjoy this game. Take it from me, someone that sort of sits in that camp, which I can only get so much mileage out of military shooters. Something at first I was a little bit jarred by is all the maps are set piece. They're handcrafted, curated. And part of me would have thought, surely something like this would shine if it was procedural, right? Like on paper, that makes the most sense, because the more you play this, the more you're going to memorize the levels, and you're not playing the game and engaging with its mechanics on a case-by-case basis. You're now playing on a macro level around a level that you already know off by heart. However, there are so many levels, it's not really going to be a problem. Like, in theory, I would have thought it would be a problem, but in practice, it's really not. And the cool thing about having these handcrafted, curated things is that you get these brilliantly designed, there's environmental narrative storytelling around a lot of the levels. I don't want to ruin them or anything like that, but one I found particularly jarring was a very, what was that movie, Sound of Violence or whatever? You raid a talent agency, they call it, and it's pretty clear that it's like a pipeline for nefarious things involving, child crime and all this sort of stuff. So pretty awful, pretty grim, but I mean, it's kind of real. It's kind of, and props to the devs for not really pulling their punches. They've designed some pretty cool, faithful stuff. You can customize your guns and do all sorts of cool different builds. You can mirror under doors, there's booby traps, there's all sorts of cool tricks that'll catch you off guard. The first time I encountered booby traps, it was, essentially raiding a prepper's estate in the bush. And I got my whole team blown to bits. I was like, oh, well, there's a lesson learned. It meets out the new gameplay experiences, and, the first few levels you'll be playing a certain way, and then after the next few levels, you're going to mirror every single door. So, much like a game that would have like a power-up system, it's a strange comparison, but, something that gives you double jumps or air dashes or whatever, but it's got to give it to you at the right amount of progress through the game for it to create a balanced sort of curve to it to keep you engaged and keep iterating on the game. This kind of has it in there if you just play through the maps sequentially. In a way, the way that the game works and the enemies that it throws at you and the different scenarios, they build upon one another sequentially, which makes for like an ever-growing gameplay experience. Otherwise, it would be, well, what would be the opposite example? Something like if it was a whole bunch of these sandbox missions, but they were all pretty much the same, it would become kind of boring and homogenous after a while. So there is this sort of nuanced escalation to the sequential missions, which I really, really like. Anyway, basically, this game's really fun. Get some lads that you're not going to ruin friendships over. However, to be honest, like, even though it deals with sweaty material and you kind of get your sweat on when you're playing it, doing your clearances and all, it's actually surprisingly accessible mechanically. At the end of the day, sweeping a room doesn't have to be that complex, and, the comms, I suppose what I'm getting at is it might seem intimidating at first. It's not really. If anything, it's actually kind of fresh, in that it's so unusual for your sort of multiplayer co-op experience that you may be used to. Anyway, so they're my thoughts on Ready or Not. Brilliant game, worth the time, worth the money. Check it out. Might just leave it there for the time being. I'll catch you guys on the next one.